Okay, so we've got Daniel Costa Gil with me today. Daniel was a goalkeeper for St. David's and captain in 2009. Hey, Dan?
Yeah, that's correct, 2009.
Yeah, and we had quite a good season that year. It was kind of my first year of coaching at St. David's. Coaching the first side, and we had an awesome experience. Dan, maybe you just want to talk about like coming to St. David's and your experience of it. And
Sure, no problem. First of all, Luke, thanks a lot for having me. It's great to see you again. Not the best times to chat, but I think what you guys are doing with the website and all of that, I had a look at it yesterday, looks absolutely incredible. And that was actually one of the main reasons I came to St. David's initially in grade 8. I wasn't there in primary school. I went to Montrose Primary. So one of the main things in deciding for high school was to make sure that I found a place where I could have a football program that could help me develop. And then over the years, St. David's, as you can see, has developed themselves into I believe, into one of the best footballing programs in the country. So that was actually one of the main reasons why I decided to come to St. David's. My older brother was at the school already. So I got to know Mr. Gaffney, who was the first team coach at that time in grade 7 when I was playing for the area team in grade 7. At St. David's, we had trials. He came across to have a look at the talent. He saw me, and that's where it all started, my journey. So I started playing first team football in grade 8 with Mr. Gaffney. And then, if I look back at my time at St. David's, those years were the highlights. I mean, we had some incredible times in grade 9. We had the unique opportunity of going to England, playing in the Man United Cup. So that was a very cool experience. But my highlights of that whole 5 years at St. David's was definitely the 2009 year. It was quite a breakthrough for St. David's football. I mean, we got to 3 finals in 1 year. I know you've taken it on in the last 10 years to an incredible level, but that was a breakthrough. It was the first time we managed to do it in history of getting to 3 finals in 1 year. So, and that actually led me to the journey that I've been on now at the moment, where I fell in love with coaching. I learned a lot from you at that time, from you and Gareth, about how you manage the team, how you created the environment for us to perform. And how really, even just watching how you approach it on the website is how you go about, you guys have the ability of making it our team, which is you go into environments, you don't get that very often, where we had the say, we were allowed to voice our opinion, tell you guys what we thought, what we wanted, and build something together. So that's when I look back at my time at St. David's, it's had a huge impact on me as a person that I am today and as a coach that I am today. So, definitely.
I still think about, because we went to 4 tournaments in 2009, and you obviously spoke about making the final of 3. I still think about it, because at that time, Gray was the first one. I still think about that free kick of that Borpello. We needed to win our last game to go through to the knockout games. And we were 1-0 up like in the last minute, and there was this incredible free kick, and like we all collapsed on the floor when that went in. Like we were on the floor and just inconsolable. That was something hectic. And I think that actually that moment then spurred us on to kind of not let that kind of thing happen again, and we worked really hard to do well there. But I mean, you talk about how good that was at a team environment. For the coaches, it was just as good, Dan. Like you talk about you learning a lot. Well, we learned a lot there as well, and that's though there are things that we did there that I still kind of ground myself on in those experiences, definitely. Dan, you spoke about Mr. Gaffney coming to get you in grade 7, and then you obviously straight away came into the first team setup in grade 8. How do good goalkeepers develop? What kind of coaching did you do in primary school to kind of lay the foundations for the player you were already in grade 8?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, because I think it's an area in South Africa where unfortunately it's lacking, specifically good quality goalkeeper training. So I was fortunate when I was younger, from the age of 7 until 9, I moved to Portugal. So for those 2 years, I was based for a few months. I was at Benfica, and then the following year and a bit, I was at Bilnench. So at that young age, I was able to learn the basics very young. You know me, I'm not a very tall goalkeeper, but certain things I was very good at, and certain things I wasn't too good at. But my base was good. So that allowed me to, when I came back to South Africa for the remaining years of literally until maybe I was 18, not to receive proper goalkeeper training. I was able to get away with it to a certain extent, but that certain extent doesn't get you to the elite level. So I think, yeah, so I was fortunate to get that training early. I think it's pivotal. It's incredibly important as a goalkeeper to get that training. But that also doesn't give goalkeepers an excuse to say, oh, but I don't get the training. That there's no excuse for that. Whether it's now with all technology, there's easy ways to go look up and see how guys are training, analyze. Also with great social media, if you really want to learn, there's definitely ways you can reach out to people. I mean, for example, if I was in any young goalkeeper's shoes nowadays, I would definitely try reach out to a goalkeeper that's doing it currently in the PSL or somewhere. So if you look at St. David's, we've had quite a list of goalkeepers. It's incredible. There's about 8 of us that are an incredibly high level. So I definitely think it's a position where St. David's has been the most, had the most talent. But then the sad part is, if you look at it, then there's one, I think Costa is the only one that's still playing. But if you look at it, also I think Costa was probably the tallest. Before me, we had another goalkeeper called Richard de Villiers. He was probably the, so height comes into play also. So that's why I was never able to go take it to another level. I didn't have the height. But yeah, I think that's crucial. If you can find someone doing it at the moment and try to pick their brain and see how they learn. And then you've also, anyone at the St. David's program is also very fortunate, because you got guys like you that really care and that go out and try to find these people. I remember in my 2009 year, Gareth Borden, his brother-in-law, who was a goalkeeper coach from Gannon. And I mean, he spent time with me, and I think Dean was with me at the time. And just that attention is extremely important as a goalkeeper to help you perform.
I mean, like you say, geez, we've just been so blessed with quality goalkeepers. And as a Liverpool fan, like seeing seeing like guys like Karius and Mignolet on a regular basis, when they messed up in games, I'd be like, Costa Gil would have saved that. Dean Harrison would have saved that. Like, and there's, to be honest, there's like no doubts in my mind. Like, I just, but like you say, there is kind of this obsession in professionals about being like a certain height and stuff for goalkeepers, hey?
Yeah, look, I think I can understand why. So, for example, my story behind that, when I was 15, I went overseas to play football tournaments, and I got scouted by Blackburn, and I went to go spend 2 weeks there. After the trials, they're like, okay, cool, we'll monitor you. Following year, I went overseas again with another football club, and I got scouted by Newcastle. And that was pretty much, listen, we want to sign you, let's get it over the line type of thing. So until the end of it, where they're like, yo, you know what, you're too short, we're not going to sign you. So then you go home and you try to go to growth hormone specialists. I'll never forget that they take an X-ray of your wrist and your fingers to determine the distance between your bones, and that determines how much more you're going to grow. So I went there, and the guy told me, okay, you're going to grow maybe 3 to 6 centimeters. I'm like, okay, great, let's do it. And he's like, if we put you on growth hormones, maybe 3 on top of that. And I was like, awesome, let's do whatever it takes. And he's like, yeah, but it'll cost you about 30 grand a month. And I was like, yeah, cool, cheers, have a good life.
Yeah,
but seriously, going back to it now, I think is it possible to be a goalkeeper in modern football below 185? Depends which league, I think. And if you look, those goalkeepers have diminished. I mean, the last ones I'm thinking about, like you look at Bravo, who was at City, Maybe before that you had Bartes. Casillas was also not really the tallest.
But
yeah, exactly. But my other skills didn't compensate enough to a level to let me get away with not having my height. So if I look at myself, when you talk about a goalkeeper, what my biggest strength was I didn't shut up. It's the communication. It's like the leadership as a goalkeeper. So I always saw everything in front of me. If I was able to organize everything, it made my job easier. So that was my biggest strength, because you don't hear a goalkeeper, everyone says you must really communicate. But if you remember me playing, and I remember myself playing, I didn't shut up the whole game. So there's ways you can compensate for it. But even looking back now, I have absolutely no regrets of the way I went. I was never meant to be a footballer. I was meant to be a professional football coach. So that's led me on my journey. It's understanding why you go through certain things in life, and then looking back and try to put the pieces of the puzzle together. So just reflecting on that. So I think, yeah, height does play a role, but there's ways around it. Okay, it comes down to like the no excuses. You got to realize, okay, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? Okay, if I don't have the height, okay, cool. How do I compensate for it? And there's people that have done it. Go look at Steph Curry in the NBA. Go look at other guys who have broken barriers. But to break those barriers, you have to be like almost twice as obsessed to break through those barriers. So is it possible? Definitely. But there's also a realization. I also now been in England for a year. There's differences in levels. So I think, for example, in South Africa, at times you also think that you may be the best in South Africa, but that's South Africa. There's a different level here. But then also there's the total opposite spectrum of that belief, where South Africa also tends to subordinate a lot to Europe, where a lot of South Africans don't realize just what our strengths are as South Africans, and that we can play on this level. So it's just understanding all of that. Yeah, so if I had to say, height's important as a goalkeeper, definitely. But for me, much more important is the mental side of it. Like you talk about Karius and Mignolet, like the ability to bounce back from a mistake, the ability to lead your team from behind, the ability to be brave, the ability to like not be afraid of failure, because goalkeepers have a specific position. If you mess up, most of the time it's a goal, and then you got to get back and perform again. So that's why I think I loved it so much. It's so unpredictable. You know the saying, you got to be a bit crazy to be a goalkeeper. But yeah, that's my view.
That was excellent, Dan. What kind of like, now you've got kind of an insight into, like, you spoke about picking a goalkeeper's brain. Let me pick your brain. Like, what kind of routines do professional goalkeepers go through on a daily basis? What are like almost like the prerequisite before the training, or what like training do they do every day? Or
so yeah, let me give you a great example. So I'm at Southend United in the academy, and so take for example the first team goalkeeper from last season. He got signed by Manchester. I think he's third or fourth choice there currently. So we had an evening where we would get the first team players to chat to the academy of players and share exactly like questions that you just asked now, like what's advice that they can give, like what does a normal day in the first team player look like, what really does an academy player have to do, or has to be willing to do to get to that level. So for example, his name was Nathan Bishop. I mean, he would arrive at the training ground at 7 a.m. He would be in the gym for an hour and a half before training, train, go back to the gym. But it comes down to what we spoke about earlier. He knew his strengths. So he was quite tall, but he was a skinny guy. To play in England, especially in the lower leagues, and to get to the top level, you have to beef up a bit. So he knew his development plan, what he needed to do. And the one thing that made him different, he did it every single day on a consistent basis. So I think it's just that routine, understanding I think it comes down to the basics. It's just the foundation, understanding, okay, who am I as a player? And this can go to any player in any position. Who am I as a player? What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? Okay, what level do I want to get to? How do I get there? Okay, what's my approach? Am I going to focus on just improving my strengths and hope that my weaknesses get better in the process? Or am I going to focus in on my weaknesses and then develop my strengths as a byproduct? So once you understand, I think the first base that any football player has to get to and has to understand is get to that level of awareness of who they are as a player. Okay, so what are my strengths as a player? Because I think a lot of guys get stuck and lose their uniqueness and their potential when they start comparing themselves to other players and try copying what they do. So, for example, if I go try to do what, let's say, what this Nathan Bishop did now as a goalkeeper, try copy what worked with him, my body type straight away, I don't need to build muscle. So I'll be wasting that valuable time thinking that I'm developing where I'm actually not, because it's not benefiting me. So I would, for example, if I had to go back in my years, I would look, okay, I'm too short. Okay, but what can I improve? What is a vital skill that's needed now as a modern goalkeeper, or that's needed in the next 10 years? And that would have been my distribution and cross taking. So if I had to go back, those were probably the two main things I would focus in on and focus in on every single day. Whether it's before training, after training, I'll get guys, okay, just come, let's do crosses, let's do something. So there's always ways to improve. You use your teammates. I think that's what I remember awesomely about our time in 2009 and my whole St. David's career was that brotherhood we created, where guys just wanted to have fun, improve together. I think that's the key. Don't try to do everything yourself. Try, for example, come pick your brain, Paige's brain. Reach out to guys. What do you think I need to improve on? And then also once people tell you something, also just don't accept it. Like also started like think about it deeply. Is that true? Is it what like my inner voice or my is telling me? So yeah, I think those are the main things. Just know your strengths and weaknesses as a player. What level do you want to get to? What do you have to do to get there? Like you said, it's really not rocket science what these guys do. What's important is that they're aware and they're very clear on their objectives and how they're going to get there.
Awesome. Dan, maybe now we can chat about your path into coaching and specifically like coaching at Cares. I always like wonder like what is the mindset of like Cares boys and like in our like battles, how did you approach games? What did you like look at St. David's as like our weaknesses and our strengths and how you would beat us? And give me give me the inside track there.
Cool. Yeah, so just from a playing career, first of all, like I remember playing against Kes. It was actually the team we played in the 2009 final and beat. Kes were always, when you play against Kes, it's almost, you definitely know you're in for a fight. You definitely know you're playing against men. Definitely know you're playing against history. So I always look forward to my Cares games. Unfortunately, we weren't able to play them in rugby. I remember in grade 8, we lost 84-0. So that was the last time we played against them. So football was a way to like test ourselves against them. So then what was very interesting for me was seeing that in the actual environment. So just briefly, I started in 2013 as Gareth, as assistant coach, and then I was a goalkeeper coach. So in that space, that was actually around the time that I decided to become a professional football coach. I was still playing football back in South Africa. Had one or two opportunities to play in the national first division. But then I had the realization, I said to myself, look, I can spend the next 10 years of my life and maybe play PSL football in South Africa and do that. Or I can spend the next 10 years of my life studying to become one of the best coaches I can become. So that love of coaching actually like sincerely comes down to that 2009 year being under your tutelage and Gareth's tutelage. Just how you guys were able to get the best out of the whole team was incredible to see. So I really enjoyed that. So that's what really sparked my love for coaching. So then of course, jumped at the opportunity to go spend time with Gareth in 2013 at Cares. Following on that year, he moved on. So then there I was quite still a youngster, taking the first team from 2014 to 2016. And then you really get to see what Cares is about. It wasn't a smooth sailing road. I remember specifically I had a lot of challenges. As you know, Cares is a huge school with a lot of history, but unfortunately that history, well, hopefully it starts changing a little bit now, but football's not much in that history. So I remember lots of times I was fighting to try get us to go to certain tournaments so that the boys had the opportunity to play. allow us to train certain times a week so that we could really flourish the environment. So that took a bit of adaptation to get that right. Playing against St. David's was always, I mean, at that stage, you guys were already, you had already transformed them into one of the best football programs in the country. So also being an old boy, there was already quite a bit of, I didn't really need any more ambition or desire to win. But there was always, it was interesting. There was always quite a level of mutual respect. So I remember some of the games were fierce, competitive, but it was never in an ugly way. It was literally just boys developing, going, putting everything that they have on the field, going at it. So I look back at my Cares years. For me personally, as a coach, I had to transition a lot. So from being an assistant coach then to the head coach, I remember the first year, and this is what I loved actually. This is a great example, shows the character of a Cares boy. I remember in my first year, I still approached it as if I was assistant coach. So with how it worked with me and Gareth, I was always the youngster, so I was get very close with the players. So I had tried to do that exact same approach in my first year as coaching. And I remember the captain and the captain came up to me and they're like, "Coach, you're too much of our mate. You need to like distance yourself a bit." And I was like, "Wow, that's incredible." To come to have the ability to stand up and just say that to not an authority figure, but like a coach. I just found that incredible. And then there were other one or two examples of just when I think about Cares, I think about character. I remember also again in my first year, we went to the great tournament and I didn't want to take two goalkeepers to it. I said, why must I take two goalkeepers? Surely my one goalkeeper can just play the whole time and I can take an extra player. So I took one goalkeeper.
Caleb. Yeah.
Yeah. And then on the second last day, he got kneed in the head. So we went to the the Betty clinic and spent there most of the night. And they took X-rays and they're like, no, everything's fine. So we played him the next day and all of that. And then a few days later, we found out that he had a dislocated jaw. But there was no complaining. There was no anything. And that's why he was captain of the first team. And that's why he was head boy. And that's why he also went on to play in the States. So it's just that character that just that personality, which isn't too different to St. David's. And I think that's where the benefit of football is. When you talk about like, why did I want to come to St. David's, is for that exactly. Was when you have a football program that develops you into a well-rounded human being. I mean, I learned my biggest lessons on the football pitch. So yeah, puts a smile on my face thinking about those times.
And then Dan, you spoke about studying to be like the best coach you could be.
Yeah.
So what courses did you do? How did you get into those courses? And maybe talk about where you are now.
Sure. So yeah, I matriculated in 2009. My maths mark was 58 instead of 60. So I didn't end up going to it. So I ended up taking a gap year. Then I landed up the following year at Stellenbosch. So it comes down where we chatted a little bit about earlier, is where know your path and know what you want to do. So there at that stage, I was just going with the flow and I landed up in Stellenbosch and I was doing business. So I was in lectures and all of that board. So then I came back and then I went into sports. And then in 2013, when I made the decision to do this properly, that's when I started researching. Okay, I said, okay, well, I'm obsessed with reading. So I like reading about a lot of stuff. So I went and researched, okay, where did they go and learn? What was their journey that took them to where they are? So at the stage, I remember clearly I was reading one of Mourinho's books and they were speaking about the Scottish FA. And I went and looked and did a bit more research. Nuno Espirito Santo, Villas Boas, they all came through that education pathway. So then I just picked up the phone and phoned them and I said, listen, I'm a South African coach. I want to come learn. How do I get on this course? And they're like, well, we're not too sure, but just you have to start right from the beginning because no one had done it before. So that's what I did. I started right from the beginning. So from 2013 until last year, took me 6 years to get qualified, and now I have my UEFA A license. I have my UEFA elite youth license. And then also now I'm currently doing my a master's in sports directorship. So yeah, it's been quite a journey, but it's been focused and just understanding where I want to go. So now currently I moved to the UK last year. So now I'm with Southend United. I'm with the under-16s academy coach. So following on from Cares, just to get perspective. So I was at Cares from 2013 to 2016. 2015, I was also coaching club football at Balfour with the under-17 team with the academy called FTF. Then again, it comes down to seeing where opportunity lies. So I remember at Cares, you remember him, Jason Rod, credible midfielder, and he was managed by a sports agency called Forward Zone. So I got in contact with them, and I just again picked up the phone and I called the CEO and I said, "Listen, can I come have a chat with you? I want to become a professional football coach, and I just want to know what your advice would be to someone like me. What's the pathway? I'm already trying to do my badges, but what else do I need to do to get involved in professional sport?" So yeah, then from there I met him, and I'll never forget one of the things he said to me. He says, I don't believe in luck. It's almost things happen for a reason, and that's when opportunity arises. And at that stage, he was looking for a coach for under-16 Maccabi team. So I joined Forward Zone, and I was with them for 2 years. In that time, I mean, I got to travel at least 80 times. We went into Ghana, Kenya, Uganda. I went to Holland. I went to England. I went to Portugal. So I was able to go visit all these academies and learn and see what they do, what they have in place, why they're able to develop players, what do they do differently, what can I bring back home. And then through that, in 2017, I was able through Forward Zone to get an opportunity at Stellenbosch FC. So I went in there as the first team development coach. So my role there was to work with talented academy players and try transition them into first team players. So we talk about like the importance as a goalkeeper of getting specific training. It's as valuable as an outfield player. And you see it's becoming quite a popular position, especially here in England and around Europe, is that individual technical coach. So that was my role at Stellenbosch for a season. I absolutely loved it. And then it came down to making one of the hardest decisions I've made. I said, I am in with a great opportunity. And this was when they were still in the first division. And then the following season, they got promoted. But my decision to leave came down to wanting to just come learn. I don't want to say from the best, because I think in any environment, you always can learn from people. I just wanted a different experience. I wanted to come learn from the guys here in England, in Europe, and see what they do differently, why they do what they do. So that was a challenge. So I left the easy for the uncomfortable, and that's got me to where I am today.
Sure. So, I mean, when you like a one-on-one coach, what is that? Do you look at their footage and like analyze it with them? Do you work on specific skills that they need to do? What does that look like?
Yeah, so my approach with that was, at the time, Stellenbosch didn't have an academy, but they had feeder teams. So we knew talented players between the ages of 15 to 22 in the area in Stellenbosch and from Cape Town. So we identified I think initially we had about 15 of them. And then my role was to analyze them individually and figure out what they needed to do to bridge a gap. So I think in the end, we landed up with a group of 5, because as much as everyone says they want to work hard and really want something, once you start putting in give them the structure, then a lot of people, unfortunately, it removes their excuses. So now they got to commit or they don't. So a lot of people run away. So the ones that stayed, so for example, I remember there's a player now who just signed for the first team. He's 19 now, and he was 16, 17 at the time when I was working with him. Extremely talented player, extremely technically gifted, a midfielder. But the learning with him was he was in an area that's got a lot of gang activity. So with him, it was not so much even about the technical or the tactical. It was more just about showing care. He was nowhere out of like that environment. Definitely would have been in that environment if we hadn't spent time and invested in him. Again, he wasn't physically well built. Wasn't well wasn't well nourished. All of that. So but we put in places. Fortunately, we were able to put in practices to help him with that. We gave him a gym program. Got him into practice at times. So how it worked, I'd analyze with him. I'd go watch him play for his club team, and would see, okay, cool, this is what we're working on. This is what you've done well. Is he developing? And then every now and once and then I'd bring him into train with the first team and see how we would cope. So it was a slow progress. And I mean, I left there 2 years ago, and it was only this year that he got his professional contract, but he continued with it. That's also the benefit of having the MDC team. So he was able to play in there and continue growing. So it would be a combination of analyzing them through video, going to watch them play, chatting with their coaches also, bringing them into the first team, getting the first team coaches' perspectives. What do they need to improve on that, and then just developing a plan and just working on that consistently every day.
And then last question from me, Dan, is where to next for you? Like, what's the next level in your progress? You're an academy coach. Are you like head of the academy, or you're?
No, I'm just an academy coach. So it's what's next for me. So I've still got 1 year left in my sports directorship masters. So that's been awesome. I mean, you've got executives from different sports. I've got guys from cricket. I've got guys from rugby, swimming, snowboarding. So that's been an awesome learning curve. So it's just been around those people and being able to pick their brains on a daily basis, seeing how they approach challenges, how they approach their environments, how they create cultures similar to what you've created at St. David's. What's next for me? I definitely still have a desire to learn from the best and see where that goes. But again, I'm not. So let me give you an example. For me, what's next for me, I just want to be in an environment where I can learn. So for example, last year, I'll never forget, I arrived to the UK and I went and stood out 17 hours of the Tottenham training ground. I had a big sign from Mauricio Pochettino.
I saw the video.
Yeah. So it's like doing things like that. And that's what the benefits of being this side does. I mean, last year at Southend, we had Sol Campbell as the first team manager. So actually just enjoying where I am at the moment, taking it day by day, not too focused on the future, where I want to be very clear on what I want to do and what I want to become, but detached on how that's gonna come about, and just enjoy my time also with the under-16s. I mean, it's never to forget why you actually coach, is to help the players. So as long as I have the opportunity to do that every day, I'm more than happy.
Yeah, it sounds like you. I'm proud of like how you've got such a clear and strong vision. It's makes me happy, man.
Yeah. So now can I ask questions?
Yeah, shoot.
What was so like from my memory from 2009, like I said, was us being able to reach 3 finals in 1 year for the first time in St. David's history. What was key for you in the last 10 years, taking that to not getting to finals, but winning those finals? What's been key to developing the St. David's football program to what it is today?
So in 2009, that was a lot of that was Gareth. Gareth Kolkenbeck-Roo was a head boy in 2000. Yeah, that's the same year that I matriculated, but not at St. David's. So when I met Gareth, we had an instant friendship. Like we got along really well. But he's just such a force of nature. Like he just pulls people along with him, and he's got clear ideas. And so that year was a lot of learning, because going to a co-ed school, you're not really exposed to there's no Gareths at co-ed schools, and I think he's a similar character to Caleb that you coached, or Gareth. I mean, that's just who he was. Then then I had to transition from being the assistant to being the main guy. And I actually interviewed Brandon Leach the other day, and we were discussing that in his first tournament we won when we were in grade 9, and then there was like a period of like 3 years where we didn't win anything, and then we won then there was like a period of like 3 years where we were winning like all the time, and now we kind of like in transition. It feels like a little bit again. I mean, firstly, like, doesn't matter if you've got Mourinho sitting, like Paul Merson said the other day, like Mourinho sitting with Wenger, sitting with Sir Alex Ferguson, sitting with Pep. If you don't have the players and the players don't like do their job, then like nothing's going to happen for you. Like you say, at St. David's, we're incredibly lucky that that culture is actually already in place. That when St. David's started boys' school soccer, the headmaster, Paul Eadie, said to Shane Gaffney, we have to start schoolboy soccer. We can't just carry on the way we've been going. So St. David's were the ones that were like calling up, hey, we've got guys that want to play soccer. Do you guys want to play soccer? And then like people followed. And I mean, it goes down to things like the head of academics, like saying, okay, you've got a science exam, but the guys playing soccer can write half an hour later because it's important to us, you know? Like the whole school just cares about the football. What is the difference between like transitioning between like what makes the difference between winning sides and losing sides, or not winning sides, competitive sides and winning sides? I think that a lot of the time it's the attitude of the star players in the team. Okay. So we've had like unbelievable talents in the past, but sometimes you find that they warm up by themselves and they don't want to talk to the youngsters and whatever. Whereas in like a winning team, it's like horizontal almost, you know, and the star guys are front of the queue anytime you want to do a drill, and they also want to include the youngsters in what they want to do. And I mean, we were chatting about it over WhatsApp, that it's like my like personal coaching philosophy is that kids don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So I've always tried to like understand the players that I'm coaching, and we try and have fun. You know, also speaking about the culture of the school, there's this. Let me see if it's on the wall. Yes, somewhere. I can't see it now, but there's this like these Marist values things, and like so many of those like tick boxes for football coaches, you know, like presence. Like it's so important for a coach to be present in their players' lives, and family spirits. Like your team has got to have a family spirit. And I mean, even things like in the Way of Mary, like if you go and read like what In the Way of Mary means, it's like it helps like football culture. So I just think it's like a perfect set of circumstances at St. David's. We've also seemed to have like a lot of like Portuguese and Italian and you know, like guys who like soccer, and it just works, you know.
Yeah, definitely. So you talk about like now potentially, first of all, like what are the chances of anything happening this year?
Not great. I don't know. There's a few things on the table, and obviously everyone's trying to make sure things happen. But I think we'll have an idea after the August holiday. When we come back in September, we'll kind of have a roadmap about whether things are happening or not happening, and if they are happening, what we're going to do.
Okay. And now, like when you talk about like, never mind this huge challenge that's going on now at the moment, but how do you, in a transition phase or period that you're in now, like how do you, what's key to help that transition get through and focus on the process and not get
So,
lost? Yeah.
so last year I moved away from the first team. Um, so Paige, he can do it by himself. He's a great guy, and also, um, a chance to just like go back to under 14 and see like what are these kids doing. Let's make sure we've got like a lot of kids playing and enjoying it, like a solid base. And you don't really know a player uh, until you've coached them.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's something I've um, kind of in my mind is like where are the players that are going to do what we need them to do, to look for them basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then carry on.
Because in like we've got like a soccer season every year, you can't really make effective change over 1 year, right? So you've got to um, invest time over a number of years working towards a goal. Like when Leach was in grade 9, I put together a plan to say, okay, in the next 3 years, what are we gonna like? Where do we want to be in 3 years' time?
Mm-hmm.
With that group, and it actually worked out exactly like that. Like only after 3 years did things then start to happen.
Yeah. Brilliant. And then like for you personally as a coach, like how, when you look at it, a lot of like the best coaches, a lot of them are former teachers. So how's like that aided you as a coach, and like what's vital that you've taken from being as a teacher that you use?
Well, I think you learn like presentation skills. You learn like when like sometimes someone's just not ready to hear what you're going to say. It doesn't matter what you're going to say; they're not ready to hear it. You also get like an inside track into like football is not everything in this child's life, okay, and it's not everything in anyone's life. So you get an inside track into that, which kind of can help you put things in perspective. And then I think those are the main two things for teachers, is that they see the full picture, and they've got like it's a similar skill set. Yeah.
Okay.
They think about how to put across ideas. How am I going to get what's in my head into your head? Yeah.
So like, just to go deep on that, because I think that's such a great point. Like that's a lot of coaches have like great ideas, but that's the key. If you don't have the ability to transfer those ideas to your players, you're a bit stuck. So like, how do you like go about like transferring it? So like, if you had to approach like player A and player B, do you say, okay, to get to player A, I have to do this, player B, I have to do that?
A lot of the time it's like assessing that there is actually a problem as well. So there's a lot of I spent some time with a sports psychologist, and there's a lot of information that just comes through the eyes. So you'll like see you'll be delivering something, and you'll kind of like you'll say, okay, this is what I want you to do, and whatever, and just like try and read the information from their eyes. Some guys won't. You'll see like if it's like a well-functioning team, you'll have the eyes, you'll have their energy. If there's like been losses or a bad day or fighting, you won't have their eyes. Their eyes will be like somewhere else. And like let's say there's like just one person who gives. I mean, like human interaction is so complex. They'll give you like something that, like you like, and then you interrogate that. Like, do you understand what I'm saying? And I think just like being open to their energy, like, geez, sometimes I can get angry. And that's been like a challenge in my development, is trying to understand where everyone's coming from, and that not everyone's on the same level, like ready for you. To answer your question, I'm not sure. A lot of it is like it's an art, right? It's not like a science. You've got to read the situation. Yeah.
Brilliant. Because I had a conversation, I think it was a few weeks ago, with actually Mr. MacArthur was my history teacher. And I remember how he managed me in a classroom environment was quite unique. So I definitely think, like, as teachers, your ability to manage 30 students every day and understanding like how to get them all bought in is an incredible strength to have.
I don't think we do it every day. I mean, we try every day,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Cool. Yeah,
Dan,
but let me know if there's absolutely anything I can help with this season, anytime going forward. When I do come out, I'll definitely come visit. But please, yeah, I'm more than happy to help in any way. If you want me to also try potentially get you in touch with anyone or as like a guest speaker or that, or like something cool to give back to the kids, especially unfortunately with this year where it's going to be a big challenge, please just shout and I'll do whatever I can.
thanks, Dan. I really appreciate that. It's been such a valuable chat. Yeah, and it's great to see you doing good things and just keep on your way. And St. David's is proud of you.
Shots, I appreciate it. And like I said to you a bit on WhatsApp, but thanks for being part of the journey. Like I said, I don't think you realize like the impact that you've had, but that 2009 year, everyone involved in that year has been the reason why I want to become a professional football coach and why I'm here representing South Africa.
Awesome, Dan. Keep well, eh?
Cool. Ciao, Luke. Appreciate it.
Cheers.
Cheers,
Cheers,
man.
buddy.
Ciao.
Bye.